Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. How have you been? I hope you have been great. My name is Priska Oserali of Gold Imperial Academy, where we help interested persons become better garment makers through our trainings in pattern drafting and garment construction. Before we go ahead, if you are yet to subscribe to our channel, please do so. Also turn on the notification so you get notified each time we drop new videos. Today, we'll be looking at how to create a garment with an asymmetric yoke. So let's go ahead. Before me here, I have the pattern that has the shoulder dart. That is, I have constructed this using the Natalie Brace method. Okay, to learn how to construct this, you can take part in our online or offline courses. Okay, this will be treated in detail. Let me quickly run through the pattern. So this is the across chest, this is the dart, this is the bust line, the true bust line, waistline, lower waistline, and also I have elongated my waistline, okay, for some other manipulations that I'll be doing that is not relevant to this class. This is my hip line, my true hip line, and also my hem. I'm using my true hip line because I want this top to be a bit longer than the hip line that is used to construct this pattern. Right here is the front of my pattern and right here is the back of my pattern. Continuing, I would like to increase the value of my darts on the shoulder, okay, thereby tightening my across chest. I can either do that or I'll just come to the across chest and then tighten it. This will prevent my garment from gaping. Okay, remember this will have a yoke, but then we can't just come and take our yoke without doing some manipulations on the pattern first before we proceed. Whatever the value of your dart is, you can increase that along your shoulder line. Okay, you can use 40%, 50%, 20%, depending on what you want to achieve. That is how fitted you want it to be on your body, how closer you want to bring your garment to your body. Okay, so for this, I'm going to be doing 50%. So all I'll just do is to mark out the 50% of my shoulder darts on my shoulder line. This is my shoulder point, this is my neck point. Okay, so I've marked that out. I'm now going to connect it to my true bust line. Now I have elongated my dart line to get to my true bust line. That is, I have made this into a princess style line. I have connected my shoulder dart to my waist dart. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead now and connect this. Here I have increased my dart. I have taken the liberty of increasing by 1.5 and then increasing by 100%, okay, so that if I am not satisfied with the 50%, I can use my 100% because this is going to have a yoke. Okay, this place is going to be our yoke. So now we'll continue. The next thing I'm going to do will be to mark out my under bust level. Okay, so I'm going to mark out my under bust level. That is 13.5. So I'll mark that out. So now I have connected my under bust line. So you can label that under bust line or under bust point. Okay, on the waistline, you can see that I have multiple lines. Okay, that's because besides my dart, I have also transferred my center front dart to my waist dart. So that is why you can see all these lines that are here. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and measure my under bust. That is the value of my under bust. The value of my under bust, because I want to take away the excess, which is essentially what we do when we contour. So I'm going to go ahead and measure from my center front, omitting the dart at that under bust level, and then measuring towards my side front to get the value of my under bust. I'm now going to distribute the excess on my block in order to remove it from my block. I'm going to go ahead now and smoothen this pointy tip. Okay, I'll always say this, your pattern should in no way be pointy. If there's any pointy part, ensure that you smoothen it out. So I'm just going to use my free hand and then blend this out properly. Here you have it. So this is my contoured block right now. So I'm going to go ahead and separate this now so that we can draw out our yoke. Now moving ahead, I'm going to now slash through my dart line. Okay, I'm going to slash all the way to the true bust line like so. Okay, next I'm going to be closing my shoulder dart. So I'll just crease like so and close. So this will now enable me to draw out my yoke. Okay, so this is going to be asymmetric. I'm going to first of all draw out my yoke as a straight yoke before I now go ahead to convert that into an asymmetric yoke. Hope we got that. So for now, what we are doing is we are going to be cutting a straight yoke. Thereafter, we'll now convert it to an asymmetric yoke. Alternatively, you can draft a full block, okay, a full front block, and then just draw out your asymmetric yoke. You can see that as I closed my dart, my shoulder line has been distorted, so I'm going to fill it in by placing another paper under. Usually I do not cut out my block until I'm done designing, so that if I need to fill or block anywhere, I wouldn't need to insert paper. I'll just do it on the original paper used in drafting my block. But since I already cut it out, I'll just put another paper and fill it up. So now I have drawn out my yoke. I'm going to go ahead and cut it out now. The yoke is out now. I'm going to separate my pattern fully. So now back to my yoke. So here is my yoke. I'm going to go ahead and fill my shoulder line and also fill the point of attaching it back to my garment. So I'm going to do that and then mirror this yoke. Okay, mirror this yoke on another paper so that I can have a full block for the yoke, and then we'll now draw out our asymmetric neckline. So here is my full yoke now. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and draw out our asymmetric yoke. So I'll measure from my shoulder point to mark out how wide I want my neckline to be. So I can do 3.5, okay, or I can do 3. Note that I have started from my shoulder point, not from the seam allowance. Remember, I added seam allowance to this. I like to do that. Okay, so I've drawn out 3 inches or 3.5. So I'm going to go ahead now and draw out my asymmetric neckline. So you can use your free hand and just draw it out. Okay, and just draw it out like this, or you can use a curved ruler if you have and draw it out, or you can just use your ruler. Okay, you can use your ruler and draw out a straight line first, and then you would now curve it out. So whichever way you think is okay for you, you can do that. Okay, or I can just use my free hand and draw this out. So you can measure the depth from the base of your neckline to wherever you want the depth to get to, and just go ahead and draw it out with your free hand. Okay, so however you want it. So this is it. So all these will now go away. Okay, so all these goes away. So all I'll now do is to cut this out and then go to the back, draw out the yoke of the back as well, and also draw out the asymmetric neckline of the back. All right, so now I'll be working on the back of the bodice block. First of all, you determine how long your yoke will be at the back if you're going to have a yoke at the back. If you're not having a yoke at the back, then that means you have to create a full block for your back so that you can also make it asymmetric as well. I'm going to have a yoke at the back. I will now determine how long my yoke is going to be. Alternatively, you can mark out the level of your yoke before you separate your pattern so that the lines will be on the same level. So what I have done is to measure the one for the front, and then I have also measured the same on the back right here. So the next thing I did after measuring was to connect the line. You can see I have also added my zipper allowance on my pattern. I like to do that on the pattern if there is space for it. Moving ahead now, I'm going to section my pattern. Then this becomes the yoke and this becomes the body of the garment. So I'm going to separate it now. The next thing I'm going to do will be to mirror this as well, just the same way I did for the front. I'm going to mirror this and then draw out my asymmetric neckline on the back as well. So now I have my back yoke mirrored. All right, so you can see I now have a full block for the yoke at the back. Okay, so in order to make sure that the front and the back shoulder is the same, you will just place your front pattern on the yoke like so, and then you mark it out. Okay, make sure that it rhymes together. That way your front and your back shoulder will be the same. So once you mark it out, you can remove the front yoke now and just draw out your asymmetric neckline for the back. Okay, so you can either use your curve ruler. For example, you can extend your across back line like so, and then use your curve ruler and blend that into the across back, or you can bring it lower. So you can either blend it in like this, okay, all right, or you can bring it lower, or you can use your free hand, whichever one pays you. All right, so even after doing this, you can still use your free hand to smoothen it properly the way you want. Also make sure that it rhymes with the one for the front. Okay, you can see how I finished off the one for the front, so you also make sure that this rhymes as well. So all this will be going away. Then add your cutting allowances, 0.5 for here, or you can just draw it out. Since this will be going away, you can just draw out the seam allowance to it. Then you add your seam allowances where necessary. Here I already added my seam allowance. Okay, so this is what I meant. So you just place your front and back blocks together and trace out so that the lines can flow together, and then you can just blend it into the back neckline like so. Okay, so I'm going to smoothen this very well so that I can have a smooth curve, and then afterwards I'll cut all this away and place on my fabric and cut. So I have decided that I will add my seam allowance on my pattern. Since all this is going away, I can now add my seam allowance. Okay, just 0.5 is fine, although the recommended seam allowance is 0.25, but you can use 0.5 and then trim off, or you nip at intervals. Okay, so I'm working with this lovely fabric, okay, color black. So because of the nature of the fabric, I'm going to be cutting my pattern first on my lining. Thereafter I will transfer my lining to my fabric. I have done so already. I'm now going to go ahead and place this on my fabric and then cut. So everything is cut now. I'll be adding visible interfacing to the lining and then I'll be stitching this. So let's go. So visible interfacing has been added to all the linings. Okay, for each of the linings we had to cut two. So for the one that will serve as the underlay fabric, okay, you just place your fashion fabric on it like so, okay, that is right side up, and then the right side up as well. So for all the linings, you would join the front linings together. For the back, you would also join the lining to the fabric. Okay, this is for the front. I'm going to go ahead and pin this, okay, so that it will stay in place, and then stitch this to the center front. So these are the side front panels, okay, so I'm going to pin this together and then stitch it to the center front panel before attaching the yoke and then turning everything with the lining that I would have stitched together. Okay, so now I have joined the lining and I have also joined the fabric for the front. Okay, alternatively, you can join all the pieces together and then join all your lining pieces together as well, and then couple it together, that is fabric to lining. Okay, in that case you won't be seeing any visible seam allowance, but for this I'm going to be joining it this way, okay, so that it will be easy for you to replicate. So I'm just going to join my yoke. I'm going to place my yoke here and then sandwich my yoke in between. Okay, so the yoke will be here and then I'll place like so and so. Okay, I'll do same for the back. Join the front and back shoulders together and then finish off the neckline with a bias tip. We hope you found this useful. Please follow us and tag us on Instagram at jgoldimperial. Like us on Facebook. See you soon. Bye.